we'll start with something here.
Yeah, there's bugs everywhere.
You're gonna be a foreman when you grow up? Maybe. Okay, well, you got a good start coming up. I think. You just watch it.
Well, it was a real luck. Yes. Finding the good. Well, no.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our 2 o'clock show of the Model T Assembly team here at the Canadian Festival of Cars. I'm just reading from my script, so bear with me for a minute here. We're delighted to have you with us today at the Simcoe County Museum. Before we begin, the Simcoe County Museum would like to thank Thor Motors, a local business that is kind enough to sponsor this particular activity, and particularly to Henry Scott for their generous donation in support of this activity. We hope you've had a chance to enjoy the day so far, and there's still more to come. Car games will begin at 2:30 just on the other side of the buildings over here, and the east of Cedarview Cottage, and the music continues in the pavilion down the way here until 3:15. And don't forget, just in front of the open storage area here is the ice cream stand, powered by the gas engine. Thank you for joining us, and hope you enjoyed the chassis demonstration. So there's the official script. You guys all heard me say that. Anyway, welcome, and what you're about to see is the assembly of a Model T chassis. What we'll do over the next 10 minutes or so, I'll tell you a little bit about the Ford Motor Company, the Model T car itself, and how important it was to society and mechanical things and life as we know it in today's world, and how it relates 100 years later to what we're doing today. So just so I'll introduce the team, and then I'll start talking about the Ford Motor Company itself and whatnot. So starting on my left here is Rob Saunders from Port Rowan, Ontario, Kurt Schneider from Kitchener here, Reed Schneider from London, Noah Saunders from Beachville. Noah Saunders, yeah, he's changing names now. Bobby Saunders from Beachville, and Noah Schneider from Kitchener. So Jacob Saunders over in the corner there. So we're sort of the third generation of the group of guys that started this back in the early 1960s. So we've been doing this a long time, and hope you enjoy it. So are we getting ready, folks? We've got a new timer down here. Callum's going to give us, when I give you the go, Callum, are you ready to go? Okay, go. First thing you see here is the frame that would have been put on the assembly line. That would have been one of the very first components that was put together on the moving assembly line. As you know, the Model T was introduced in 1908. By that time, Mr. Ford had been in business for 6 or 7 years, started in 1903, and between 1903 and 1908, Ford had put together about 20,000 cars, and that made him the 4th largest manufacturer in the world. In early 1906 and 1907, he took some of his key personnel and put them on the 3rd floor of the Piquet plant and started to develop what would become the Model T Ford. It was finally introduced in 1908, in the fall of 1908, and there's a lot of different components about this chassis that are different than a lot of the other cars you would see on the show floor today. Mr. Ford was obsessed with making cars that were affordable for the masses. Prior to this, most automobiles, including a lot of the ones you see here today, were unaffordable. They were only for the very wealthy. And Henry and his team really wanted to make a car that would be affordable to the everyday person. You have to appreciate that in those days, a lot of the people that came in to buy these vehicles were coming right off the farm. They were literally showing up at the dealership in a horse and buggy and driving away in a Model T, and this was the very first car that they owned. There's some interesting mechanical features to the car. The engine itself is a 21 horsepower inline 4-cylinder engine. It was the very first time that any manufacturer had built an engine in one casting like that. It has a removable head so that you can get at the pistons and some of the valves from the top end, different from all the other cars of the day. The 3 pedals on the transmission there are a little different than what we would see in a modern car. I'll go through them once they get the car together. But the various sub-assemblies that you see here would have been manufactured in various parts of the plant. So the rear end, the front end, and all these various things sort of came together in a herringbone pattern. The staggering, or sort of some of the interesting features, between 1908 and late 1913, these cars were assembled by hand. So the car stayed stationary and the parts were brought to the car. They looked at this production methodology and said that's not fast enough. They were selling cars so quickly that they had to develop a system that would make the cars faster. So they developed a moving assembly line in around 1914, and that's when the car really started taking off. The cost of the car started coming down. So by the early 1920s, they got so good at this that the original price of the car in 1908 was $850 for a standard touring car. By the early 1920s, that cost had been reduced to about $230. The other unique thing about the dealerships was you had to pay for the car in full before it left the dealership. Think about that in today's dollars. That wouldn't happen. But they got to the point in the early 1920s that the cars were so popular that the Ford Motor Company, even though there was hundreds and hundreds of manufacturers of automobiles all around the world, the Model T Ford had 55% market share. Think about that. 55% of all the vehicles in the world were Model Ts. For one simple reason. They were cheap, they were reliable, and everybody could learn how to drive one. A lot of simple features about the car. The 10-gallon gas tank above there's no fuel pump. It goes directly by gravity to the carburetor. The 3 pedals I'll explain in a bit. They were producing these cars in staggering numbers. They were producing 9,000 cars per day, 6 days a week, 50 to 55,000 automobiles per week out of one plant. 10,000 people per shift, 30,000 people in the plant, 8-hour shifts, 7 days a week. We all today enjoy an 8-hour day because of what was developed at the Ford Motor Company in the early 1920s. There was a lot of other things about the car. They were shipped worldwide. This particular car was built in Walkerville, and the Canadian production in Windsor, Walkerville was shipped all over the world to get around the duties of the day. So when you think about it, there was one of these vehicles rolling off the assembly line every 30 seconds. That's how quickly they were being made. Many of them survived. Today we figure there's still, out of the 15 million that were produced over the 19-year production run between 1908 and 1927, probably maybe 100,000 of them are still around the world. We don't really know for sure. Boys are getting ready to put some water in the front end there. The one thing that didn't change throughout the basic configuration of the car stayed the same year to year. There were small tweaks to each model year, but every different body style was bolted to one particular chassis, so they didn't have to go through a lot of changes to drop a different body. So the one car would go through, it'd be a Touring, the next car would be a Coupe, the next car would be a Roadster, and they were just firing out the assembly line, or off the assembly line like that. There was a gentleman at the end of the assembly line with a bucket and a 4-inch paintbrush, and they were literally dabbing parts of the car that were scratched as they were coming off the assembly line. Are we getting ready, guys? What we're gonna do is lower this down, and Bobby will get on the front end and see if we can get this thing started by crank. Oh, it needs a little buzz on the coil. And there we go. Okay, Colin, what do we got? $5.59. Well done, guys. So what we're going to do here, Rob's going to let it warm up for a couple of minutes, and then we'll demonstrate how to start a car on compression. You saw Bobby crank starting this thing a few minutes ago, but every Model T owner learned a little trick on how to start a car like this on a cold morning just by setting it up the night before on compression. So he'll get on the seat here, and we'll go through the 3 pedals. Bobby will lower it down here. Now you'll see Rob's foot is on the right pedal there. That's your brake. The middle pedal is reverse. So by depressing it, the car comes back a little bit. And then the very left pedal there is the clutch. Push it forward for low gear, let it out for high gear. The 2 levers on the steering column are not turn signals, but one is the spark and one is the throttle. So that you'll notice there's no gas pedal here. As I said a minute ago, you have to appreciate that people were literally coming off the farm with a horse and buggy and leaving with one of these cars. That's how it was. And so they purposely kept the control system very simple. They didn't have a H crash system or transmission like the others. They were a simple planetary. So Rob, give it a go here. He's going to warm it up, rev it up a little bit. Then he'll retard the spark here, which will make it start to run very rough and leave a little bit of gas on top of the piston. So that when he shuts the vehicle off and then turns the key back on, that spark will start the car without having to get out and crank it. So give it a go there, Rob. And he shuts it off. Oh, didn't want to do it this time. All right, Kurt will give it a crank here and get it going. There, it starts right away. Try it one more time. It can be cantankerous. He retards it a bit. Shuts it off. Now try it that way. Oh, it's not cooperating. Did it the first time, yeah. Try it one more. It's running a little rich here. There we go. Finally got it. One more up. There. That's what you learn to do. Well, thank you very much, folks. We hope you enjoyed that. We'll be around for a few minutes. If anybody has any questions, by all means, come on up and ask anything you need to know.